You've spent years perfecting the act. You know how to show up polished, and you know how to keep things smooth and pleasant and controlled. You know you know how to give people what they want, and you can make her laugh. You can make her smile, and you can make her say, "Oh, you're such a great guy." But still, you notice as she pulls away, still there's this distance between the two of you that you can't seem to close. Still, you find yourself alone at the end of it all. And you wonder, what is it that I'm doing wrong? You're doing everything right, it seems, aren't you? Except you're not doing the one thing that matters the most. You're not letting her feel you. So here's the difference between performance and presence. Performance is what you do to be liked. Presence is who you are when you stop trying to be liked. See, performance is polished, it's controlled, it's curated, whereas presence is messy, it's human, it's honest. Performance makes people admire you, whereas presence makes people connect with you. And here's the truth. You can't perform your way into her heart. See, she doesn't want to date your image per se. She doesn't want to fall in love with your resume. I think what she wants is you. She wants the man beneath the polish, beneath the charm, beneath the carefully managed exterior that you've been developing. She wants to feel the real you at the bottom line. So here's, I think, why performance, though, feels far safer. Performance feels safe because it offers control. See, when you're performing, you get to decide what people say. You get to minimize the risk. You get to protect yourself from rejection. And if they reject the act, this is what you tell yourself. They didn't reject me, they just rejected the image. But if you show up as you are, unguarded, imperfect, human, and they walk away, that feels devastating. That feels personal. It feels final in a sense. So you keep performing, you keep managing impressions, you keep hiding, hoping that it will be enough. But it's not. Because no matter how perfect the act is, it can't satisfy this deeper hunger for connection. See, no one can love you if they can't feel you. There's this guy that I once knew. I'm gonna call this guy Adrian. Yeah, that's a good name for him. Adrian was the guy that everyone liked. He was smart, he was charming, he was well put together. And on paper, he seemed perfect, right? But relationship after relationship, each one that kept ending, they ended in the same way. I'm great, but she doesn't really feel close. There was no major fights. There was no huge problems per se, but there was just this quiet, persistent disconnection. And it wasn't until Adrian sat down with a mentor and he heard the brutal truth that finally clicked for him. Now, she can't feel you through the mask that you're wearing. See, Adrian had been so busy being impressive that he forgot to be real. And he'd been so focused on managing how he was seen that he never allowed himself to be seen. And when he finally started showing up in a different way, in a messier way, in a more honest and more present way, so many things changed in his experience. The connections that he formed weren't always smooth like they once were. They weren't always easy, but they were real. And for the first time in his life, Adrian wasn't just liked, he was loved. There's a risk of being real. See, being real It's risky ground. It feels like standing in the middle of a storm without any shelter. It feels like handing someone a map of your tender, vulnerable places and trusting them not to wound you. So like there's no more armor, there's no more scripts that you're reading from, there's no more curated highlights. There's just you with your uncertainty, with your fear, with your hope and your longings. But that's exactly what real connection demands. Not perfection, not control, but presence. And presence says, I'm here. Not as who I think you want, but as who I actually am. Presence says, I trust you. I trust you enough to be seen. Presence is the foundation of intimacy. And it's the thing that most men never realize that they're missing. So here's why I think she can't feel you or perceive you. You wonder why, for example, she's slipping away. You wonder why the conversations just are surface level, they feel hollow. You wonder why, no matter how much you're trying to give, it never seems to be enough. Now, it's not because you aren't trying. You're definitely trying. It's not because you aren't good enough. Your worth was never negotiable. It's because she can't feel you. She can feel the performance, the practiced gestures, the well-timed smiles. She can feel the carefulness, the way you stay within the safe boundaries that you've created. But she can't feel you. She can't feel the man beneath the act. The man with the messy emotions, the man with the real fears, the man who aches for connection but is terrified about being seen. And here's the thing. Women are very intuitive. They can sense what they're being offered when it isn't real. So you can fake charm, you can fake confidence, you can fake success, yes. But you can't fake being present. Either you're there, like really there, or you're not. Huh. There's this guy. I'm gonna call this one here Theo. That's a nice name. I like Theo. Theo was a performer. Yeah, he had a different style than Adrian, our earlier guy. He was quieter, he was more reserved, but he still had a mask. And he had perfected the art of being low maintenance. He was never too needy, he was never too intense, never too much. But on the inside, he was lonely. He was starving for connection. And when his girlfriend of 2 years finally ended things, she said something that he never forgot. She said, I never felt like I knew you. I always had the sense that you were holding something that you didn't offer me. And she was right. She was perceptive. Theo had been holding everything back. He'd been holding his fears, his hopes, his disappointments, his desires. And he thought that he was protecting himself. He thought that he was protecting her. But all he was doing was he was keeping her at arm's length, keeping himself locked in his loneliness. And when Theo finally started dropping the mask and risking awkward conversations and risking vulnerability, that's when his life changed. And it wasn't an instant change, and it wasn't without pain, no. But it was slow, it was steady. And he began to experience the kind of connection that he'd been longing for a long time, the one that he thought he could never have. Because when he showed up in his real self, he gave others permission to do the same. And this is how we approach freedom without the fear. See, performance is driven by fear. It's driven by the fear of rejection, driven by the fear of abandonment, driven by the fear of disappointment. And fear teaches us that it's safer to be liked than to be actually known. It's safer to be impressive than to be real. It's safer to manage perceptions than to invite intimacy. But freedom from fear This begins when you decide that being real, even if it's messy, even if it's risky, is worth it. See, freedom isn't the absence of fear, is it? It's the refusal to let the fear have the final say. Freedom says, I will show up as I am, not because it's safe, but because it's true. Freedom further says, I would rather be rejected for who I am than be loved for who I'm pretending to be. And in that freedom, real connection becomes very plausible, very possible. Because she can't love the mask. She can't love the man who's pretending. She can only love the man who is being. There's a slow death of this mask, though, isn't there? See, wearing the mask, oh, it doesn't just rob you of connection, it robs you of yourself. Ooh, does it ever? And at first, it seems harmless. It seems like a little self-editing here, a little image management over here. But over time, the mask, it stops being something that you wear, and it becomes instead something that you are. So in this process, you forget what your real face looks like, and you forget what your real voice sounds like, and you forget what it feels like to live without the pressure to perform. And slowly, you start to disappear, even from yourself. And it's a slow death. It's not dramatic. It's not visible to the outside world. But you feel it. You feel it in the hollow conversations and the relationships that never quite feel safe. And then in this gnawing sense that no one really knows you, and maybe no one ever will. Because how could they? I mean, you've never actually given them the chance to, right? You've given them a mask, but masks, like I was saying, I don't think can be loved. But here's what real presence feels like. Real presence feels far different. It feels risky, but it also feels alive. It feels like breathing deeply for the first time after years of shallow gasps. Presence feels like feeling like you're standing in front of someone with nothing to hide, and realizing that you're still standing. It feels like showing up to a conversation without a script, and discovering that you're still enough. It feels like connection, but not the kind that impresses, but the kind that nourishes. See, presence says, I'm here, fully, honestly, without any defense here. And presence, see, when you show up real, you're giving others permission to do the same. And when you stop managing how you're seen, you're making space for real intimacy to grow. There's this other story I was just remembering here. This man, I'm going to call this guy Jason. Jason had spent most of his life, his adult life at least, hiding behind this mask of competence. He's always capable, he's always in control, he's always unfazed. But beneath the mask, Jason was tired, and he was lonely, and he was hungry for something real. But when he met someone who challenged him to drop the act, it terrified him. She didn't want his success, and she didn't care for his charm. She just wanted him. And slowly, and this was painful too, Jason started letting her see him. The doubts, the fears, the dreams that he didn't talk about because he was afraid of failing, right? And it wasn't easy. It wasn't comfortable. But it was real. And for the first time, Jason experienced what it felt like to be loved. Not for the role that he played, but for the man that he was. See, being felt is a gift that we let others experience. When you drop the mask, you're giving her a gift. You give her the gift of your presence, the gift of being with a man who isn't performing, a man who isn't trying to manipulate her and her perceptions, a man who is simply there, open and real and vulnerable. You're giving her someone that she can trust, someone that she can feel, someone she can actually connect to. Because no woman or no person can truly connect with a mask, but they can connect to you if you're willing to let them. So, let me offer you an invitation, a courageous invitation, and that's to drop the mask. You don't have to keep living behind the mask. You don't have to keep wondering why connections you crave always just feel out of reach. And you don't have to keep performing for love. You can live differently. You can choose presence over performance. You can choose truth over polish. You can choose connection over control. Now, it's not going to be easy, and it isn't always going to be comfortable, but it will be real. And that's what you've been starving for all along, I believe. Not more approval, not more admiration, but more connection. Real connection, or at least the kind that only happens when you're willing to be seen in a full and honest and imperfect way, is out there. She doesn't want that mask that you're offering. She wants you. She wants to feel you, not your performance, not your highlights, not your carefully managed image, just you. And freedom, at least freedom from fear, starts there. The life that you want, the love that you want, it begins the moment that you're willing to courageously stop hiding. Not when you're perfect and ready, not when you've mastered vulnerability, not when you feel fearless. Now, in this moment, even if your heart is beating rapidly, even if your voice is wavering, even if every instinct in you is screaming, retreat, because freedom from fear does not come from waiting until you're ready. It comes from moving forward despite that fear, moving forward anyway. It comes from choosing to show up real today, and again tomorrow, and again the next day. And it comes from building a life where people, at least people who love you and who know you, are going to stay in the midst of, where you're no longer trapped behind the performance, where you no longer have to wonder if they'll love the real you, because you've actually given them the chance to. One final story. There was this guy, I'm going to call this one here Liam. Liam, he spent most of his life chasing success. He had a job, had a house, he had accolades. But when it came to love, nothing really stuck. Nothing felt real. Until one day, Liam sat across from someone and decided for the first time not to perform. So there's no carefully crafted answers, right? There's no safe surface level jokes he offered. There was no hiding. There was just honesty and presence. And it was terrifying. And it was freeing as well. Because for the first time, Liam wasn't trying to earn love. He was actually inviting it in. He wasn't offering the mask that he'd been wearing. He was instead offering himself. And for that first time, he was loved. Not for what he did, but for who he was. And now, my dear listener, it's your turn. She wants to feel you, not your mask. She wants your presence, not your performance. And if you're honest, I think you want that too. So I want you to, I actually want to hear from you. Have you ever found yourself performing for love? and realizing that it was leaving you lonelier than ever? Have you ever taken the risk to show up real and found connection was actually waiting for you on the other side? So let me encourage you, drop the story in the comments. I would love to read through it. But also drop it because your honesty might be the permission that someone else needs to finally step out from behind their mask that they're wearing, and to finally step into a life of connection and truth and freedom. A life where they are known and where they're seen and where they're loved, not for the performance that they put on, but because they've learned to be present. You guys got this. Thanks for watching.